Okay, good afternoon, everyone. It's nice to have so many people in the room. You all look a little bit older than the previous people who were sitting around the room. We had students from around the state, and it was maybe even more packed than it is right now. So thank you all for being here. So this afternoon, we're going to pick up the topic of substance misuse prevention and what's happening in prevention coalitions around the state, what the Department of Health is doing. We're going to hear from a number of witnesses, and we have Dr. Hildebrandt starting us off. Thank you so much. I haven't even made paper copies.
Full service organization, you know.
Oh, there's a problem with the link, apparently. Our technology has been causing us problems all day, so thank you for being here, Dr. Hildebrandt.
Thank you for having me.
Floor is yours.
All right, for the record, Rick Hildebrandt, Commissioner for the Department of Health. And good afternoon. Today, I'm here with some of my colleagues. I'm here with Emily Truder, our Director of the Health Department's Division of Substance Use Programs, and leaders from two of our Vermont Prevention Lead organizations, BPLOs, Amy Carmola, who's the Chief Impact Officer of United Way, and Marianne Morris, who is the Executive Director of the Collaborative. So prevention works. It's frankly one of the reasons I'm in this job. I saw time and time again that I was dealing with the consequences of problems that should have been prevented in the first place. It's cost effective at a time when healthcare costs are astronomical. And we have a strong and specific Vermont evidence to show how much of an impact it has made in our state. It's an investment in our communities, led by our communities. And sustaining and supporting consistent funding from the Substance Misuse Prevention Fund is critical for this work. We employ a comprehensive approach to substance use disorder prevention, programming that addresses the individual, the environmental, and the societal factors to improve the health of our communities. We use proven strategies such as school programs and policy change to prevent initial use, to reduce misuse, and to enhance protective effects within individuals. We support our community-based decision-making model, which empowers schools and the VPLOs to use local data to determine what is the best path forward for the community. And
VPLO, just not everybody in the room.
The Vermont Prevention Lead Organization.
Thank you.
And this is critical because we need to listen to our communities. They are the best source of information to know what's going on the ground. We need to give them the ability to do the work to address the concerns they identify rather than implementing a top-down approach, which doesn't always work in this scenario. It can leave us detached from what's really happening. So I'm going to hand it over to Emily Truder, who's going to give you a lot more detail about how our program is structured. Take it away, Emily. Unless there's any questions from you.
I was just wondering, so not on the overall thing, and this may be something that somebody needs to get back to us on, but I'm just wondering, Representative McGilt, did you have a question about, this is going to get very specific about grants that are out there?
Specific to prevention, but for our Turning Point, like
Okay,
our recovery centers.
So I'm just wondering who, maybe we could follow up with Emily afterwards.
Emily is probably better suited to answer.
Okay, just want to make sure. We've had some concerns raised, and okay.
And if we don't get to it, we'll make sure we get your question.
Okay, thank you so much. These musical bench seats. And somebody is welcome to sit in this chair if you would like to pull that chair out and sit. That's fine. Yeah. You probably shouldn't sit at the table, but you can sit in the chair. Although we did have a middle schooler, joining that meeting earlier.
Started taking notes.
I know. I did see it. Okay, that's good. All right. A future legislator. It's all good. Welcome, Emily.
Thank you. For the record, my name is Emily Truder. I am the Division Director for the Health Department's Division of Substance Use Programs. Just before I begin today is Prevention Day at the State House. Obviously, see a lot of partners here today. It is also, we're knee deep in Alcohol Awareness Month, and it's gorgeous outside. A quick shout out to my mother who's turning 75 this weekend. She's very excited. A picture of her front lawn is on the cover of this presentation. was actually watching.
Aw. In the photographs.
You're welcome.
Your photo.
We love that.
There she is. So I'm going to go through several things here. My goal is to make it tangible, be able to feel what prevention feels like on the ground. We have two wonderful presentations that'll be coming after me to really give you that flavor, but our goal is to give you a little bit of the nouns and verbs, as well as some of the process information as we go through it. So the first part we're going to start with is, why is substance misuse prevention important? It's compelling. 90% of individuals with substance use disorder had their first use prior to the age of 18. The adolescent brain is more vulnerable, as we know, even under the age of 25, to alcohol and drugs than the adult brain. Early use can disrupt brain development, increase the risk of developing substance use disorder. And that 90% is compelling, and that's a national statistic. We next move on to defining prevention. So substance misuse prevention reduces the harmful effects of tobacco, alcohol, and other drugs and stops addiction before it starts. And we sort of use two strategies for that: increasing protective factors and reducing risk factors, as well as delaying the onset of first use. To the right of this slide, hot off the presses from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, they've released a new report that speaks to the long-term positive outcomes of prevention. It promotes early substance use disorder identification and timely intervention, reduces the risk for binge drinking and substance use disorder, enhances overall physical and mental health, improves occupational and/or academic performance, and lowers school dropout rates and reduces disciplinary issues among adolescents. This is an interactive slide deck, the one that's available there if you would like to be able to hop out to the larger reports. So you'll see a lot of links as part of the presentation. A lot of spaces, what does the investment look like? So, per the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, they have several reports on this. We do provide the link at the bottom of the graphic, that $1 invested in prevention saves $18 in other spaces. Investments could include school-based prevention, community strategies, substance use messaging and policy initiatives. The savings can sit in spaces like chronic disease care, treatment and recovery services, future healthcare costs, criminal justice system expenses, et cetera. We're going to go through a brief snapshot of how we fund prevention services in the state of Vermont. I do want to open specifically with the Substance Misuse Prevention Fund. This slide represents our FY27 budget proposal. The General Assembly did establish this fund and dedicated 30% of the regulated cannabis sales excise tax for substance misuse prevention. For FY27, we're proposing that $5 million be aligned with the Vermont Prevention Lead organizations, $3 million with school-based prevention services, and then a little over $1.5 million for field-based prevention staff in the field. The next slide probably would take a deeper dive on a different day just because it's so detailed, but we did want to give you a snapshot of the overall Department of Health prevention budget, which is a little over 18 million proposed for FY27.
Emily, should I just ask on the previous slide, on the school-based prevention services, out of our, whatever it is, 100 and some odd different school districts, what's the reach on that school base?
Right now, we're currently serving 64% of middle and high schoolers across the state. I do have a slide a little bit later that does show a map, so you can see sort of the areas that definitely need services at all, let alone other areas. There's no area of the state that I'll never say anybody has enough, but there's clear gap areas across the state, and we have a slide specific to that.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome. In the slide that has the four graphs to the left, you'll see a sort of laid out in a few different areas. We have community-based services, school-based services, the tobacco control program, and other prevention activities. We do right now have 6 different funding sources that do support prevention-related activities. 2 of them are tied to the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, both our block grant and a large strategic prevention framework funding source. Obviously, the Substance Misuse Prevention Fund, the Evidence-Based Education Fund, General Fund, Global Commitment, and the Tobacco Fund.
How does this, I remember when we were doing the vaping bill, the tobacco bill, we heard testimony from the Agency of Education, and they're I guess you might call it a prevention specialist. How do you link up with the Agency of Education and the resources that they put into this?
There's a variety of areas where we have regular communication with them that also happens at the local level. I think that it'd probably be helpful if I provided a little bit more information in written format post this, but there are lots of conversations in different places. There's still more work to do there. But whether it be policy building, whether it be talking about funding, whether things are happening at the local level, we're talking about school-based services, there's lots of connections in that space. But as far as actual alignment of budget, I think it'd be helpful if we took that back and provided you with something more comprehensive.
Okay, that would be helpful to get an idea, obviously particularly around school-based, where we have gaps where, I think at the time, and this, granted, this was, 3 to 4 years ago, it was, I think we were seeing at AOE, it was a little bit problematic. I'm just going to say, in terms of how they were handling substances, and it was just literally only focused on tobacco. And hopefully that's changed in the meantime, but I don't know if it has. So if you have information about your collaboration with AOE, that would be helpful.
We'll provide, thank you.
Okay.
Next, we're going to dive into the meaty parts. I think that a lot of individuals are looking for. So how do we approach prevention in the state of Vermont? We do have a Vermont prevention model. It is a comprehensive multi-pronged approach that includes different types of interventions and policy work. So it includes something at the personal level, social, organizational, community, and systems. You'll hear a lot about that from the subsequent presentations as well. It is grounded in the understanding that prevention strategies are most likely to succeed if they reach people holistically in all environments. So we'll work through each of those systems and how they interact. The next slide is a matrix that is a really small subset of all the wonderful work that's happening across the community, but fun to give you sort of a matrix that gave you a sample set with some outcomes. Again, the top columns are tied to the Vermont prevention model strategies. And then on the side, we have what it is, who it serves, some examples of outcomes, and some examples of work done. In that space, for example, under personal and social, you'll talk a little bit about what it is. It seeks to serve all Vermonters. It is population level prevention. Some examples of the outcomes include we've, reduced access to 18,000 pounds of medication through the drug disposal program in 2024. And that we had, for example, 51.3 million impressions for 3 paid media campaigns, Parent Up, which educates parents on how to talk to their children about substance misuse. Let's Talk Cannabis, something specific about cannabis, especially in the world we are today, and Outlast. You'll see one of my favorite examples, because it is Alcohol Awareness Month. Our current One Less campaign is focused, how about just one more? Think of the inverse, just one less. This campaign focused and targeted towards adults and alcohol consumption that we're very excited about. In the organizational space, one example we have in here is about our school-based services. It seeks to serve K through 12 school-age Vermonters. The statistic I gave previously was specifically about middle school and high school students. That 64%, it did not include either the K-5 or K-6, depending on the school district or supervisory union. A student learns about the harmful effects of vaping as part of the Stanford Tobacco Prevention Toolkit, for example. In the community space, I'm not going to give a ton of specifics because I want the VPLOs to be able to speak for themselves today as part of that. They have a lot of wonderful information to share, but we have the VPLOs. The RPP is a large SAMHSA grant focused on cannabis and alcohol for youth and young adults. And then we have our prevention consultant system, the 11 field-based staff. We have some of them in the room with us today that have been, I've been with the division since 1996. My first job was actually as an admin for the prevention consultants across the state, and the wonderful work they do, and really were our first approach at statewide-ness. And we had that going for us before we tried to leverage additional federal and state funds. An example in that space is rates of past 30-day alcohol use decreased for youth grades 9 through 12 from 2019 through 2033. And you'll see some examples at the bottom about, a family attends forums on youth substance misuse with other families and staff and community members in Burlington. And last but not least, and this is sort of the The quiet one that sits in the background is the policy work. So laws, policies, and regulations seek to reduce access to substances. 82% of Vermont high school students do not use tobacco. The legal age for tobacco use has raised to 20. The subsequent slides give you a little bit deeper dive into each of those pieces, just to give you a flavor. So for personal and social, as part of the prevention model, talk about a drug disposal program. We talked about some specialized programming, everything from One More Conversation, which is targeted towards pregnant and breastfeeding individuals, and talking about substance misuse and use. We have our nurturing parent programs, which reaches across the state in a variety of sectors, including within the criminal justice system. In my time, a program focused on pregnant parenting people. And we have numerous campaigns. Again, this month, I think the one to target most because it's Alcohol Awareness Month is our new One Less campaign.
Can I just ask a question in general? So, I sort of, get the diagram that shows the personal up through the systems. And I guess one of the things that, obviously, we've had some questions in relationship to the opioid abatement settlement fund and the substance misuse prevention fund, and how those two intersect and correlate. And what is starting to cross my mind is a couple of things. So how do, when we get to the community level, in organizations, I guess it would be both of those, organizations and community, how do local organizations break through this already established hierarchy that you have? If they have a concept in their local community that, or an organization in their local community that, I don't know, is looking to support a teen center, is looking to support other activities, how do they make themselves known to access resources from the VPLOs? That it seems like, and now I'm even starting to wonder whether or not we should say that prevention activities are not covered under the opioid settlement abatement fund. Because, I see people shaking their heads, but the reality is that that's a declining amount of revenue. This is an increasing amount of revenue in this fund, up to a certain point. And it may, we may need to prioritize it for treatment and other activities. So I'm just, we have this sort of, I guess we're butting heads a little bit about what fund should be used for what, so I'm just, and yeah, I know we've had community-based organizations doing prevention work that have applied to the opioid abatement fund, and the department has been reluctant to utilize prevention funds for that very prevention work, because you already have established things. And how do you break through those established things to look at, different organizations?
Great question. I think that there's a couple spaces there. I guess I will, and my lovely commissioner can kick me under the table as part of this, but I think that I don't think you can spend enough on prevention. I will start with that as a general statement. Its long-term outcomes and impacts are exponential across generations. I think that for the VPLO space, which we do have a slide in here that talks about it, they have a data gathering component that brings their communities together. They look at data about need in that space. They have competitive processes for applying for funds. So any organization in one of those communities, when those RFPs come out, can apply for new activities as part of that work. Similar to what's gone in the past with the opioid abatement settlement, where organizations could also put in an application to propose a new idea. So that still exists in the VPLO space. So it's not a top-down approach. It really is a community bringing everybody together to talk about what your communities need as far as investments.
So would you be suggesting, or are you saying that maybe, I'm just wondering if the opioid abatement settlement advisory committee should really be asking the question, have you applied? When they see prevention activities, have you applied to your local VLPO, or have you applied for substance misuse prevention funds? Do you think that that's something that they should consider?
It's something that I've seen as part of the conversation in the committee meetings I attend. I would defer to our current chairs as part of that process, but we do have representatives in the room. Sorry, as part of that. So I've been in the room where they've had conversations about that piece. So I don't know if it's formalized in the process. I'd have to go back and take a look about whether it's part of the application process. It's a common conversation in any space that we're in, whether we're talking about looking at the whole package of funding for an organization, from everything from fundraising to federal funds to grants to contracts, whatever that may be. So I think those conversations are happening. How formalized, I'd have to take that back.
Thanks.
Next, we're just moving on to organizational, speaking specifically about school districts and supervisory unions receiving funds for substance misuse prevention services. This slide includes the map to the right that you can see some significant areas that do not currently have service funding from the health department for school-based substance misuse services. The work there includes screen students and hold support groups, integrate prevention and school health, provide training to school staff, training peer leaders, which I think is a really cool part of the mix in there, and following evidence-based curriculum.
What do they do for folks, providing training peer leaders, providing training to school staff, what happens when they identify issues for students? What happens on the treatment end of things? How is the connection made to treatment for youth?
So our treatment program, so the Preferred Provider Network in and of itself, which is supported by the department, has strong connections with our schools, screening intervention. The screening component could lead to referrals as part of that mix. And they could end up in, for example, either one of our specialty programs or the designated agencies as part of that work. Some of the schools have resources in-house, so it's a little organic depending on what district you're talking about as far as that. But the purpose of the screening is whatever it identifies is to get the individual to where they need to be and at least make their resources available in partnership with talking with their parents.
Looking at the map and the 29 unions and districts, as you said, there's a lot of areas of the state that are not in green. What might be happening in those unions and districts? Is it nothing, or are they identifying funds elsewhere for prevention?
I think a variety of things. I think that's a big reason why our prevention consultant system is so important. They do have a large reach within our school systems. So the 11 positions across the state, definitely the Agency of Education, schools also, could come up with their own resources and things like that. So we at the state level also do provide education and materials as part of that. But one of my largest goals, and you'll see that in here at the end of the document, is one of our 2030 goals is to get services into each of the school districts and supervisory unions across the state. I'm going to, if it's okay, speed up a little bit, only because the other presentations following me are incredible. We do have a slide in here that speaks specifically to the school-based health and talks about some of that, some pictures of the work happening across the state. We are actively looking to standardize this student assistance professional role across the state. That's not the only type of service that can be purchased with those dollars. A lot of schools use the funding for a variety of activities, but is an allowable cost within that. The Vermont prevention model community highlights. So you'll see 3 boxes at the bottom. One shows the VPLO regions. We have 2 of them with us here today. The Regional Prevention Partnership is that large federal grant supported by the SAMHSA that focuses on alcohol and cannabis. And then again, our prevention consultants. I'm going to skip over the VPLO highlight slide because you have 2 individuals here to talk specifically about that, but here's some examples on that slide. The one thing I do want to talk about, which we touched on a little bit earlier, was the process for the VPLOs. This slide lays that out a little bit, talks about the data gathering component, building that 5-year strategic plan, hosting a competitive funding process as part of the mix to allow their community partners to advocate for their ideas and programming, and then putting together a board that oversees that work, that is balanced and looks across the system. The next is the Regional Prevention Partnership, to some areas of focus there and demonstrate some of our partners, including the Department of Liquor and Lottery, the Department of Public Safety, the DEA, and working on community education and media. We have a slide about our wonderful prevention consultants. 3 of them are with us here today. And the work they do across the state, they really fill in gaps. They make connections. They bring communities together to talk about different topics and are an integral part of the work we do. Policy level, I think is a really important piece. It's again, it's that quiet thing that you don't even realize maybe in your communities. It could be anything from retailer density. You may not realize in your community, you may have policies and procedures, so you only could have so many of something in your community. The Vermont prescription monitoring system and the Vermont pain rules in and of themselves, how they change the landscape of prescription drug misuse and lead to substance use disorder. Again, tobacco 21 being one of the most recent things that are part of that. We do have a slide in here that talks about the Substance Misuse Prevention Oversight and Advisory Council and their work. And again, they are a policy advisors. They talk about their purpose. They provide recommendations to all different parts of government and communities. And then the next section, we're just moving into some of what the impacts look on the ground. I know a lot of spaces we're looking for outcomes and sort of what the actual reach looks like. This is the slide that demonstrates that 64% of middle and high school students are receiving school-based. When I started in 1996, we had prevention consultants across the state, and we had 3 coalitions. We now have 67 active subgrantees in addition to the VPLOs across the state. So just building that capacity over time has been incredible, and we have a lot more creative partners to work with. We've had 300,000 Vermonters reached via marketing campaigns across the state, and we have had a 2.7% decrease in binge drinking for Vermonters age 12 plus.
I'm sorry. Okay, go ahead.
The 64% middle and high school students receiving, is that through the state funding?
Through the health department's funding, yes. Yes.
Just curious, not related to this slide, but just generally, does the health department work with municipalities on the money that they get directly from the opioid settlement funds?
We do at their request,
Like you,
when it happens,
Okay.
at their request. So we've done a little bit of coordination with Burlington. Right now, there's been some conversations with South Burlington and other spaces. So it's been more of at a request-based space. But, you know, again, our prevention consultants are anywhere and everywhere within our communities. So that reach is happening out there, but we would certainly any conversations that anybody was looking for as far as technical assistance.
I have a question on the receiving, the 64% of middle and high school students receiving school-based prevention services. So, you know, what do we see, or maybe you have it in here? I saw you had, I think, a link to the youth risk behavior survey. Are we seeing an impact in decreasing numbers of students accessing substances?
In certain areas, yes. In other areas, there's work to do across the board. So I'm not going to say that there's not. But I think that the 2.7% decrease in binge drinking is a very big deal. We know that 95% of our youth have not used prescription drugs in the last 30 days. So there are definitely positive movements out there. We are coming out of a pandemic, the impact and what happened and, you know, social isolation and all those different types of things that are out there. So we're starting to see things trend back in a better direction post-pandemic. But we definitely have goals to increase, for example, the number of youth that do not use, you know, alcohol or cannabis in the last 30 days, for example. So we still have targets to meet, but we are starting to see some positive impacts on the other side of COVID.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to see, of course, increasing numbers of, you know, percentage. And I can't even really call it engagement, receiving, but I mean, the outcomes on the other, I wouldn't call that an outcome, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah, that's its process. Yeah, okay.
Okay, I think the next slide is, for me, the most compelling in regards to why prevention funding is so important, especially sustained programming funding over time. You'll see here that the percentage decrease in high school students reporting past 30-day alcohol use was double in regions where there was funding provided versus regions where there were not. And to me, that in and of itself speaks volumes. I always have to talk about data collection and evaluation because prevention, how do you talk about what you can't see? Data collection and evaluation are some of the most critical work that we do as far as being able to describe the reach, describe and you know, figure out where we're headed. So I do include a slide in here that talks about federal and local data collection that we use to inform the work we do. And then quickly moving to looking ahead. This is just a small subset of the goals we have for 2030. We did recently release our strategic plan and community-based needs assessment. In here, again, we talk about outreach and engagement services, serves 100% of middle and high school students. 2035 and beyond, I'd like to get the whole K-12. As part of that, we're looking to increase the number of high school students that don't use cannabis or alcohol. increase the number of adults age 21 plus that don't binge drink. And the next one has a lot of words in it, but perception of risk is a big deal in the space when we're talking about risk factors. So increase the number of adults age 18 plus who perceive a great risk from using, essentially from using cocaine as part of that. Because so we focus on alcohol, cannabis, stimulants, opioid use disorder, the full, and tobacco. We have numerous others that include alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs, as well as just, moving into that co-occurring space and including mental health as part of that. Just as far as a key takeaway, our largest goal is to stop addiction before it starts. It is the way to win the race in the end. That we have wonderful program across our continuum that I believe in wholeheartedly. But this upstream work is what's going to change the landscape of
Some noise.
Thank you so much. There's a lot focused on youth. Can you talk about some work you're doing with older Vermonters?
I can. You're going to hear great things from the next presentation. So for one example, I'm going to talk about, that I'll give briefly, and I don't want to steal any thunder, is, for example, older Vermonters in mixing prescription drugs, for example, with alcohol and things like that. So we have a lot of our campaigns, again, our One Less campaign is geared towards adults and, potentially considering reducing their alcohol consumption. It talks about hydration between, drinks and things like that. So there's a lot of work going on there, and there's some wonderful examples that are.
Thank you.
One last question, sorry. Can you talk a little bit about, especially for youth, activities that are targeted towards increasing protective factors?
I can. I think that the next ones are going to give you really wonderful examples that I think that you're going to be excited about. I get teary-eyed when I hear some of them, so I'm crying in the corner. Ignore me.
Okay, some noise, just one final.
Sorry, I have another just quick question. You talked about the number of 18-year-olds who perceive a great risk from cocaine once per month. What's the amount of fentanyl that's in coke? Do you know, isn't it? I heard it was all fentanyl.
Everything's out there. I would say is that no substance consumption is good.
Right.
As part of that, we do have drug checking initiatives that are happening across the state. We do have campaigns, and there's national campaigns that talk about how to monitor the use of what you do there. I think that I think people like to talk off, and I get why, because it's out there, fentanyl and other things out there, but traditional, just straight up cocaine is still out there too, and things like that. So I right now operate, and when I'm talking to my own children, I'm talking about that the drug supply is contaminated, or whatever that may be. But at the same time, understanding the stimulants in and of themselves, so they get some of the attention that they need, and it's not all evolving into opioids.
Thank you, Emily.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it very much.
Amy,
I'm gonna switch because I have another stairs.
then Mary Ann then.
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. So I am Mary Ann Morse, Executive Director of the Collaborative, a Substance Misuse Prevention Organization in Southern Vermont. And I'm also the Vermont Prevention Lead for Region 4. I am a certified prevention specialist and a member of the Substance Misuse Prevention Council for Vermont. I'm just going to give you a heads up. So, yeah, thank you. What's great about the VPLO structure is that it can keep the funding right where it belongs, close to the people who know those areas, know the need, know the people who have the need, and know the local priorities. And the prevention work isn't happening in a vacuum. We team up with all of our professionals at Vermont Department of Health through the DSU and our local networks and partners of prevention on the ground also. You can see here where PL4 includes health districts of Bennington, Springfield, Brattleboro, and White River Junction. And my organization kind of lives right in the crook of that arm there in the middle of the mountains. But we've had ties to these health districts for at least 10 years through our prevention work. And we were part of the planning team for the Vermont Prevention Lead project. And so we feel close to our little network there. So having worked in prevention for so long, I can tell you that you get used to the ideas of inconsistencies in funding. And frequently your work is turned towards how do I find the funds to continue the work that I do when I know the need is on the ground. The Prevention Lead project actually helps to increase the sustainability of that work and the organizations. so that you can do that work that's in front of you and have a little bit less time having to think about it. I get to think about it a little bit, but all the other organizations that we partner with don't have as much of that stress through this project. And we start with a disparity impact statement, gathering our partners, and then we had to do a logic model, of course, to get things started. And then finally, we worked on our strategic plan together. We gathered funded partners, some of them are here, unfunded partners, what we refer to as untapped partners, the partners that we don't know are with us yet, our regional advisory committee and our prevention coordination team together to think about how we can be innovative in our work down in our region. And after bringing all those minds together, presenting the problems of substance misuse in our area and those challenges, we've come up with these 5 priority areas or goals: foster belonging and well-being, combat loneliness and cultivate connection, increase understanding of prevention and the community's health, increase awareness of resources, connections to care, and utilize collective impact for community transformation. And we determined that by working on these priority areas, we would achieve the overarching goals of reducing misuse over time. Where am I now? Yeah, the organizational structure. So to provide high-level feedback for the strategies and making funding decisions, the regional advisory committees are made up of local Office of Local Health Directors, C-suite members from the hospitals, regional planning commission members, and soon we'll be bringing in some school-based members too, because we're doing more and more work in that area. Unique to the PL4 district is that there were already 8 well-established organizations who are doing work in our health districts. And so we've connected with them, brought some of them on board to form our prevention coordination team. And we use this kind of ladder of structure to make sure that we're understanding what's happening in the communities so that we can think about what's best for the region and everyone can do their work locally as needed. Go ahead. Oh, wow. So I might have gone through all of that now.
Yeah, you did that.
Did that. Come on to. So it's great that we have these 3 years of funded partners, increases the sustainability. Right now, we're in the middle of the first year of funding our partners at a couple of different levels. One is organizationally for those established coalitions that have been working in prevention so that they don't have to worry about keeping the lights on, that they can just get out and do the work that's coming up in front of them. And then we have some mini grants that happen also that could bring on new partners more easily. Keep on. And so this is a little breakdown of where our funded partners come from. You can see some of them are working throughout the entire region. Some of them are working specific in a health district. So that's the breakdown there. But they're all also asked to choose 2 or 3 of the goals that we've identified that they want to work towards. And so this is kind of how that broke out. And we're happy to see that there's a little bit in each of those areas. Go to the next. You've seen this model before, and it can be easy to get prevention wrong in the community. And that's why we rely on tools like the Vermont Prevention Model. This works best, as Emily spoke about, when there's a little bit of work going on in all of the different areas. And so this is a breakdown in Region 4 about where people are doing their work. Really great substance misuse prevention does have work going on in all of these areas. And it might not be state level policy, but it might be local or school-based policy work that folks are working on in their communities. We provide technical support on this to our funded partners. And so over time, we have noted that the depth and the breadth of the work that people are doing across the Vermont Prevention Model has increased. So PL4 is, we've sort of imagined this area where we're not speaking to the rest of our local communities about this is what you should do, but we're trying to make sure that it's a more leveled leadership style. And so we've created this image that we're really the planter, the structure that holds things together, the collaborative and the PL4 leads, gives the system its shape, provides the stability and the support that allow the interconnected prevention efforts to take root and grow across Southern Vermont. And these supports include strategies that fill gap areas and provide connecting opportunities, communication, and training opportunities. So the design highlights the 3 connected layers: partners, networks, and PL4 leads. You've heard me speak a little bit about those partners and networks. It's so important that we keep those communications tight and together It's really been an asset in this work. Together, the layers convey a story of a shared purpose, people collaborating so that the communities can thrive, the blossom. And then next one, please. So in addition to the work that each of our funded partners does, they propose that they want to do a project. We say, okay, we have those pieces. The prevention lead also has to do some work to launch the strategic plan out. And one of the things that we focus on is evaluation, which is another tool in the prevention toolbox for evidence-based work. And we have provided technical assistance on evaluation, and our results so far with our funded partners has been great, with 82% of those funded partners reporting that they have an increased understanding of program evaluation and how to embed it in the work, and that's a real key piece of that. So let's take a look at how our funded partners connect to our priority areas in PL4. This is the fun part, hopefully. So the investment that Vermont makes in prevention directly impacts our youth, whether it's creating safe spaces after school together, empowering youth voices, participating in healthy alternatives, cultivating leaders throughout the PL4 region. Many of these projects are benefiting young people. PL funds youth projects in each of the health districts, and the PL leads kind of connect those projects together and provide that technical assistance to make it work as best as possible. So for example, one of our gap areas is the Chester community. And 2 years ago, there was no Chester Teen Center at all. And as a matter of fact, they're in a town that had a little bit of strain happening because another town school closed. And so there was new students coming over the mountain pass to get to Chester. And then the lack of things to do if you weren't into sports, quite frankly. And so there was a group of people who really wanted to open up some supports, and they did their assessment and found out that a Chester Teen Center was needed. 2 years ago, there was nothing. Now they average 30 people a day and have ski and bike events and adventures. They paint murals, and participants are asked all the time to participate in their local town's events. Chester's a town with a lot of local little fun fairs and things like that. And those young people are out into the community. My favorite quote here is about, when I turn 21, I want to come back and work here.
Oh.
And it's because that's how I felt as a summer camp kid. And then I went back and I worked at my camp and I stayed in youth work, and that led me to what I'm doing today. So it really resonates with me. We're making the leaders of today. And in the Brattleboro district, next one, the youth work looks a little bit different, and it's school-based. These young people, they might not get much attention or have a voice in other aspects of the places of their lives, but no one made them work in a garden or create a hygiene closet. Those are ideas that came from them. They started them, they work in them, and they keep them moving forward, empowering these youth at the source and connecting them to the resources that they need to thrive. And then in Bennington, we have a choice team who really wanted to improve school climate and increase healthy behaviors. And there wasn't really much to do to hold them back. They really took charge of it. They presented to the town select board, and they started a town youth council also. It's the third in the state. They create and hand out calm down boxes in the schools, in both the classrooms and in the public spaces, so that when young people are needing a little bit of focus in their day, they have easily accessible things to help get that together for them. And then in Brattleboro, the youth are the leaders in the school and in the community, leading meetings and analyzing data and using their voices to work towards a better, safer, more connected community. And they actually are the first Vermont Youth Council. And those are the leaders that Vermont needs. And then we have in Windsor, the next one is a story about the Youth Substance Awareness Safety Program provides an alternative to civil courts. And so there's a lot of these programs, but we fund the Valley Court Diversion, and they take it a step beyond really having some small groups and working intensively with the young people who have gotten a civil violation in that way. And what speaks to me here is that when you have young people who have literally been mandated to do a program for something that they got caught doing something wrong, saying that it was great and they learned something, it's got to be impactful, a lesson that will last a little bit of time. In Bennington and Springfield, Resiliency Through Understanding makes an impact. This out of school time activity is 5 educational and skill building events. They provide educational and tools that build resilience with young people. They're caring adults, they're trusted adults, are asked to attend 2 events. They're required to attend the 2 events, and they do. It's an incentive-based program. And if they are successful in these completions, they get a season pass to our local downhill mountain, Stratton Mountain or Magic Mountain, or a Nordic season pass, or a Dorset Theater season pass, providing that incentive to them to be parts of these programs, to be connecting in that way. For next slides, the project has a wide intergenerational aspect. So it educates and works on collective impact by wrapping around the young people and their families, the volunteers in the community, the schools are a part of it, and business partners are all a part of supporting our young people through this program, showing that collective impact of working towards a common goal. So you've heard us talk a little bit about evaluation, both at the state level and with our grants. We are evaluating our funded projects. We use results-based accountability, which is as simple as it can be, to be asking, how much are you doing? How many trainings? How many events? How many things are you doing? How many pieces of paper did you create? How well did you do? Did you do it? And is anyone better off? And so we have worked really closely with our funded partners to get past the jargon of evaluation and get to these types of numbers and have it based off of the goals that we have established. And right now, we just have the first 2 results from our funded partners in this year. The how much did you do, and is anyone better off will come in the next couple of quarters, right? But for the one goal of belonging, fostering belonging, we're doing pretty well with people collecting the data so that we can begin to shine a light on how well the whole region is working towards our goals. So thank you. I'll let you know I'm not by myself doing this work. I have Thomas and Samantha, who you may have seen, and James, who just started with us walking around today, making up the team. We are energized. We love the ability to work with our partners at this level and think regionally for the state, and work with our partners at Vermont Department of Health. The economic and social benefits of investing in the VPLO and prevention are really clear. Prevention substance misuse before it begins saves lives and reduce costs. And by sustaining and expanding prevention programs, Vermont will be healthier and more vibrant into the future. So thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions?
I do actually. I pick up on Representative Noyce's question from before, and it's coming back to the beginning part of your presentation. And substance misuse is one of the fastest growing sectors in older Vermonters.
Sure.
And I see a gigantic focus on youth, which is great. But I guess I am wondering what we are doing in our state about prevention of substance misuse for older Vermonters. And when I say older, I'm not talking about people in their 90s necessarily. It's really not only, middle-aged adults, but so I'm grateful that we're doing all this for youth, but I'm just wondering about what we're doing for older individuals.
Yeah, it's cool. I've accepted. I'm a part of the older Vermonters too. It's fine. I took out a slide for this one to be a little bit more timely, but one of them is some communication. So we definitely also have our own. I think that Amy will speak to that as well. We have some communication tools, partnering with places like Senior Solutions and the people who are seeing seniors every day and providing some supports for them. I'll say, as an organization and as an ideal for the Vermont Prevention Lead for Region 4, the ideal for us is to change the community norms around alcohol and substances, and that takes time. And so by connecting and by bringing people together towards a bit of a common vision, I hope to get there. But as part of the plan for the resiliency through understanding, by including caring adults, we're kind of raising everybody up, hopefully, and creating a community that can support substance-free areas by working with some. We have some hospitals, both on our regional advisory committee and as a funded partner, some like small projects. And so I hope that work can advance over time and that we can begin to norm not alcohol as a reason to relax, but the healthy alternatives as a reason to relax. So I think that we're just given permission more recently to think in that broad view. And I'm really open to hearing what some ideas is of how we can advance it. But those are our solutions right now, is some messaging, some coordinating, and some supporting of our funded partners in the work.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you're hearing from us is needing to think more broadly.
Yep.
You know, and I'm saying this to the department as well, needing to think more broadly about prevention, because obviously we naturally go to youth. And I think that even older Vermonters don't even necessarily think of themselves as misusing substances. And so that communication, and even, you know, when you're doing needs assessments, what kind of outreach are you doing to, you know, adults, and, you know, the senior centers or the, you know, local housing, situations, or, so I'm, you know, just encouraging us to have a broader view of prevention. Representative Noyes.
Yeah, used to have a person who worked at the Department of Health whose full-time job was
Charlie.
Charlie. I'm trying to remember his name. So does that position still exist?
Yeah, go ahead.
That position does not still exist. It was actually a shared position between ourselves and the Department of Disability and Aging.
Yeah.
But the work was absorbed within the current staffing pattern, so that work does still.
And we did develop our own messaging campaign for older Vermonters that was geared not just towards the 80-year-old, but towards the many people in the middle who are taking care of both ends. And we used Charlie's papers and work to help build that, and use those to guide in the presentations that he would do to our local organizations to help guide, where do we go to find out what we don't know about the different generations and what their needs are for use. So that's the stage that we're in right now, but I hope that next time we come, we can talk about more things.
Great.
Anything else?
Thanks so much. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you, appreciate you.
And now we're gonna have Amy.
Mary Ann?
No, yeah, I'm trying
Good afternoon. Thank you for giving me time to talk with you today. I'm Amy Carmola. I'm the Chief Impact Officer at United Way of Northwest Vermont, and I'm excited to share some highlights around the state's investment in substance misuse prevention. A lot of what I would love to talk about has been covered already, so I'm going to try and move quickly and share that United Way acts as the lead prevention organization for Region 1, which means we are working with all communities in the Barre, Burlington, and St. Albans health districts. And we have been partnering with the state for about 6 years, leading prevention strategy in our region. We've developed the regional plan. We convene a regional network of people and organizations, and we allocate state prevention funds. I want to talk about just a few points. One, the importance of the state's investment, not just how much, but how the work is being done. I want to give you a couple of examples from Region 1 and speak to the issue of the span of ages and look ahead to what we are, how we are focusing to build on the success so far. So I want to emphasize that Vermont's commitment to investing in substance misuse prevention is ensuring that we have quality work, consistency, and greatly expanded access. I think a lot of the examples you're hearing today are around how we're making sure that resources and opportunities are showing up in areas that otherwise did not have it, where there were significant gaps. We have a good history of substance misuse prevention in the state with some really great pockets of work and some good periods of time, but large gaps and inconsistency over time. The work that's happening now in each region is driven by the needs and opportunities. It's tailored to fit the communities, and we are helping as the lead prevention organizations and as a statewide system, helping coordinate across the region, however that makes sense for the communities. I won't speak to all of the additional work that we do as the lead prevention organization, because I think you've heard about that today, the technical assistance, the trainings, the tools, the convening, the backbone, the funding, all of the work that we do to leverage additional resources. But I want to emphasize that in about 25 years of my doing this kind of work, this is the way to do it. This is what I've wanted to see. I give huge kudos to the state for designing it this way. This is the way that it should be happening in terms of the way that it's set up with regional focus, deep engagement in community, expansion across all age groups. This is great. So huge fan of the system and really proud to be part of it. I'm going to skip past the priorities that our regional funding committee put together and the priority populations. Happy to share any of these details later. Share that we are a big part of the work, but not all of the work, is the multi-year funding that we provide to community organizations. We are funding 17 organizations that are collectively serving people of all ages and serving every town in our region. That's not our aspiration. That's what's happening already. Also skip past the fact that our programs, similar to all of the other regions in the state, are investing in work that spans all levels of the prevention model. But I want to emphasize that that multi-year funding is just one part of what we do. We also provide funding, support, leadership, and participation and resources for a lot of projects, activities, pilots, based on what our community wants, what's needed, and what's possible. I'm going to skip past talking about the broad engagement that we have across the region, but do want to just emphasize that we have the way that the VPLO system is set up. We have the opportunity to really engage with partners, not just connecting with other partners, but we are actively working with the State Department of Health, the Vermont National Guard. We have an amazing partnership with the Vermont National Guard that started in Region 1 and has since spread across the state. We're working with regional planning commissions, the medical centers, Larner College of Medicine. So this is not prevention in isolation. It's really in partnership with shared goals and resources across sectors. I'll point to 3 of the amazing things that are happening in our region, just 3. First one, Enosburg Cafe. This is another story of a community that didn't have what they wanted and needed to support youth. With this funding, a group of people in Enosburg opened the cafe, which is providing activities for youth grades 6 to 12. Over 75 youth participated in the past quarter. All sorts of great work happening with organizations and people, adults and youth coming in to support youth development and engagement in the community. We say at our United Way, every community needs a cafe, just like what Chester needed. And we're excited to say that with this funding, the cafe is now expanding to Richford. So that's just a pocket of some of the work that's been made possible that wasn't there before. The second example I want to share is around addressing unmet needs for 2 specific populations and kind of doing that simultaneously. One is older adults, and the other is people who speak languages other than English. We worked with Charlie and with the Department of Health to really try and make sure that the information older adults need is available and accessible, making sure that all the great materials and information and learning opportunities were getting out to people in community. And we worked with the Vermont Language Justice Project to create 2 videos that are available in 18 languages about how medicines and alcohol affect you as you get older, and also one about the legal and health consequences of using drugs and alcohol. Our funding committee in Region 1 is, as many other communities are, really focused on the needs of older adults and looking at how we can build out our portfolio and build out our partnership around that age group. And again, prior funding really focused on youth, but the beauty of this VPLO system is that it's saying, let's do all ages. So we're putting a lot of attention into how to build that out more. Last example I want to share is our employer guide to substance misuse. And I've brought copies with me if anybody's interested. This was a project that was inspired by the experience of an employer in Washington County dealing with devastating impacts of substance misuse for employees at the work site and in their home lives. And we were hearing from many other employers who wanted to support their employees and their families. They wanted to create safe and healthy workplace cultures, and again, provide opportunity for people to get the resources and supports they needed. So we worked with United Way's Working Bridges program, with Prevention Works Vermont, and we pulled together a work group of Vermont employers and community organizations to create this guide that addresses the needs and concerns of employers, but also uses the workplace as a platform to connect with working Vermonters and adults of all ages to get the resources they need. So those are 3 examples I wanted to share of work that is based on community need, community priorities, opportunities, leveraging what exists already, and really building out collaboration to improve access to prevention. As we're looking ahead, we are focusing on investing in what works and in what's needed in Region 1. We have a lot more to do. We will continue to fund the portfolio of programs that we monitor throughout the year, and our funding committee renews that funding based on evaluation each year. Creating that stability feels really important. And we're focusing on training and workforce development to support the people who are doing the work of prevention. Prevention is for and is made possible by people. And we really want to sustain and elevate the people who do that work. We're excited to expand our cross-sector collaboration, really excited to be working with schools. If you think about the opportunity to work with community-based organizations and schools and healthcare and business, imagine what we could do to sort of align all of our work together towards these shared goals. And we're working on aligning and collaborating with other areas of prevention around mental health, around domestic and sexual violence, health promotion in general. So much of what we want to do and provide for people in the community really can help in all of those areas. So how can we line that up together? I'm going to stop there. I could talk forever about all the stuff that's happening. I brought materials I can leave with you, our annual report. I have information about the language videos that we've created, copies of our employer guide. Just want to end by saying I'm really proud to be associated with this work and to do it on behalf of the communities and with the communities in Region 1 and in partnership with the other lead prevention organizations. We're all really proud of it, and I hope that all of you in the state feel proud as well with the vision and investment that you brought to the work.
Thank you. I'll stop later. Yeah, we have a few questions. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'm really interested in, first of all, thank you for the great information in the employer toolkit. And so I learned about New Hampshire has a recovery-friendly workplace initiative, and it's a statewide initiative. And this kind of struck me, it resonated as similar to that, but a smaller scale.
Yeah.
So I was curious, is this only happening in Region 1? And then 2, how do employers engage with this? Like, how do they find out about it? And like, how many are involved in this initiative and are utilizing the toolkit?
Great question. I'll share a couple of points there. One is that love the recovery-centered workplaces. Our Working Bridges team, which is at United Way Northwest Vermont and Green Mountain United Way, has leaned really heavily into that whole model of supporting recovery in workplaces. All of the team on the Working Bridges team are certified recovery coaches. And they were working with the employer in Washington County who said, we're just completely overwhelmed with the tragedy that's happening for our employees and for their families. And so we drew on work that's happened in the past around bringing recovery to models to workplaces. We had HR professionals and different leadership from local employers in Region 1, and they did a lot of research on what's available locally and nationally. So I think a lot of what you'll see that's cited in the guide is references of resources that employers could draw on to bring in, both, again, locally and beyond Vermont. This is available to any employer in Vermont and to any employer anywhere. Most of the references are Vermont focused, and so it is really tailored to Vermont, but we've pushed it out through SHRM, the State Human Resource, how embarrassing, management, the National and Local Association of Human Resource Professionals. We've pushed it out through our Working Bridges program. And I know that in the first 6 to 10 months, the toolkit was downloaded about, I think, 1,500 times. So we pushed it out throughout all of the areas of Vermont, even though it was created by a team in our region. We have just great collaboration across all the regions. So if there's something that's of interest that one of us has done that the others can use, we push it out that way.
I'm wondering, you and the previous witness, talk about, the priorities for your local areas, your local regions, and I'm just wondering how does a needs assessment process work? How often do you do it? And is there, some consistency from region to region and the kinds of questions that are asked and how it's done, or is it that totally, unique to each region?
I think there's both a consistency and areas of unique engagement in regions. I think we all pull on tools like the community health needs assessments, the regional plans that are available in community. We look at the same data from the Youth Risk Behavior Survey and the Behavioral Risk Factors Surveillance System, whatever the preface is. We all look at the same data statewide, and I think we all use very similar platforms in our regions to share the same types of data that we're all looking at around rates of use and risk factors and protective factors at all ages. And then I think it's really tailored by the community partners that come together to look at those data and say, what other information do we want? How do we want to engage with our communities to understand what we want to prioritize? And then that assessment both leads into a multi-year strategic plan for each region, and each region's funding committee looks at the data each year to kind of refresh. All right, we set these priorities. Has anything changed? Do we want to focus additional resources somewhere else? What else do we need to understand? So our funding committee did that process, the original process, and then each year have come back and said, let's reassess and see if we will shift. I think there are a lot of similarities in the priorities that raise up in any of the regions. There are things around disparities, things around access, things around holistic approach, really building community, not just saying what's the prevention specific pockets that we can do. Priorities are on all ages. Sorry, I could talk about this forever, but the framing of the approach also sets some very specific priorities. It says we really want you to invest across the prevention model. We want you to be using best practices. So we have that initial framing, and then each community works with their local data and local priorities to figure that out.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Representative Bishop.
Hello, Amy. I don't know if I missed this earlier, but is this in the first 3-year cycle for the prevention lead organizations?
We are in our second round of funding. I mix my numbers up because we say what year we are in for our region, but then what year we are in for the overall state approach. So we are in our second round of funding from the state. Prior to that, we had some funding as a prevention center of excellence to really build up the capacity within our region to do this kind of work. But yes, did that answer your question? We're entering year 2 of the second
Okay.
round.
It strikes me as, seems like it's relatively new in the scheme of things, but to have stood up quickly.
Yeah.
Well, and maybe it's because of partnerships that already existed between different agencies before it became more formalized, but.
I think that, and I also think the support that we had for a number of years to start to build this up. We did our regional 5-year regional plan, and we started to build our network that has been bringing people together for about 6 years now, before the formal implementation of the VPLO structure. And that was really intentional to help Northwest Vermont in particular to start to build out some of those connections across the region. There had been really small pockets or strong pockets of work happening, but it was not aligned and collected. So for the first number of years for us, it was really focused on that. Like, how do we bring people together? How do we understand what's it? How do we do some projects together? How do we test some things out as we were funding work that was happening?
And then a question specific to the work with schools. We saw a map earlier with respect to the unions and districts that are receiving state funding for prevention.
Yes.
The schools in Region 1 or schools and districts, is that the same grouping, or are there different districts and supervisory unions that you may be working with that are not on that map?
So we are now working with all of the supervisory unions, and we have support and funding this year, both to connect with the schools that have been receiving this pool of dollars from the state, and to reach out to the, I think it's 6. I'm sorry if I'm getting the number wrong. districts within our region, it might be 9, that weren't receiving the funding.
Mhm.
And we have some initial funding to help them build up their capacity and readiness and prioritize what would they want to do with the state funding, with the assumption that we will be able to bring funding to every school district in all of those regions. So again, I want to applaud the planning that the state has done to say, you need to get ready. You need to help those districts understand how they could access these resources, how they could use them. And so that's what we're really busy doing right now in anticipation. We also have we have an evaluator, excuse me, reaching out to every school district. And I know this is happening in other regions as well, just to understand how they've been using the money, what would their priorities be, what kind of technical assistance could we provide for them. So that's been exciting because it's been really hard to connect with schools outside of that formal opportunity.
Right.
They're so stretched and I don't need to tell you that.
Other questions from committee members? I have a question that's maybe more for the department. How do you determine the allocation for each of the 4 districts?
It's a two-part approach. So there is a base allocation that every PPLO gets and a balance that is then spread by the size of the population in the catchment area. So everybody needs a foundational base, there's commonalities across, but obviously some regions have a much larger population than others. So it's multi-tiered.
Other questions? Anybody else have any questions? Thank you very much. Thank you for
Time, I appreciate it.
thank you to the department for organizing the testimony today. And I think it's been helpful to hear about the V. I always want to reverse the P and the L, but VLO organizations, and to understand that they're relatively new, but they've been built off from a foundation of things that existed in the communities previously. And I'm surmising that, knowing that you had cannabis prevention funds coming, that you were thinking about how to organize in the best way to utilize those funds in a way that made sense for the whole state. I'm just surmising that.
We've been waiting for 30 years, quite honest. The funding that's come from the feds has been very, very prescriptive. And this is the first, what I love about Vermont, when I talk to other states, how fortunate we are to have the research we have. So we've been waiting with bated breath in many respects and have lots of ideas, so they were able to hit the ground running second this opportunity. So thank you, question.
And I mean, just so, because other than Dan and I don't think anybody else was here when it was this committee who designated those funds out of the cannabis for prevention work. So you can see how the evolution happens in this work.
Nice, right?
It's, it is actually nice to see, years later, some of us are still here, and we can see the impact of those. Yeah, the impact of that. So, that's great. Any other questions? Yes, go ahead.
If I share one thing I forgot to share, which is today is Prevention Day at the State House, and from 4 to 6, we have an ice cream.
Oh, ice cream is downstairs. Yes, of course.
We can't share reminders of that here, but we would love a chance to we've got partners from each of the regions here, partners who are in community doing work, as well as others from the BPLOs. We'd love to have a chance to talk with anyone and everyone. So please come by.
That's
Great
great.
day for ice cream.
I know. It's all of a sudden got very warm in this room. So, thank you. Thank you for reminding us of that. I appreciate that. Okay. Committee, I think that this is going to end our testimony for this afternoon. I do just want to touch base with Emily a little bit. Representative McGill had to leave, but it's about the Turning Point grant. So just want to touch base quickly. Anybody have any other questions for VDH or the partners around the table? All good. All right. Thank you, Lori. I think we're good for